They financed wars, rescued governments, and moved gold across continents faster than any empire could react. Then they vanished. Yet the system they built still controls billions behind the scenes. It belonged to one name, the Rothschilds. And it all started with a secret no one else knew in 1815. On the morning after Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, one man in London already knew the outcome. His name was Nathan Mayer Rothschild. While the British government waited for news, Rothschild's private couriers, faster than any official channel, delivered it directly to him. He walked into the London Stock Exchange, silent and unreadable, and began selling government bonds. Traders panicked. They assumed Britain had lost. Prices collapsed. At the bottom, Rothschild's agents quietly bought everything back. Days later, the truth arrived. Britain had won. In a matter of hours, Rothschild had taken control of the British bond market. It wasn't just profit. It was a display of speed, psychology, and control. And it built a reputation that would echo across centuries. But what followed was even more remarkable. After becoming the most powerful banking family in Europe, the Rothschilds didn't seek attention. They vanished without losing power. In 1744, Meyer Amschel Rothschild was born in Frankfurt's Judengasse, a cramped ghetto where Jews lived under heavy restrictions. Opportunities were scarce, but Meyer found his opening in finance. He apprenticed with the Oppenheimer banking house in Hanover, learning the craft of currency and trade. When he returned home, he opened a coin shop beneath a red shield, Rothschild in German, the name that would one day become a dynasty. His real breakthrough came not from coins themselves, but from an alliance. Prince William of Hesse-Kassel, one of the wealthiest men in Europe. Meyer managed the prince's fortune discreetly, gaining something rarer than money: trust. Meyer knew one bank in Frankfurt could never compete with Europe's great powers. So he built his legacy through his 5 sons, placing each in a different capital to form a living network. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt, preserving the foundation. Salomon went to Vienna, where he financed the Austrian Empire. Nathan moved to London, soon the world's financial center. Karl set up in Naples, connecting the Vatican and southern Italy. James established himself in Paris, where politics and finance converged. This was not a family scattered, but a system designed for speed and secrecy. They relied on coded letters, couriers faster than state messengers, and insider intelligence. What Meyer built was not just succession. It was Europe's first private financial intelligence network. Invisible, mobile, and indispensable. Nathan Mayer Rothschild, the boldest of the brothers, turned London into the keystone of this system. While Europe was locked in conflict with Napoleon, Nathan mastered the logistics of war finance. He arranged shipments of over 10 million pounds in gold and silver, billions in today's terms, to supply Britain's armies. Convoys, smuggling routes, and coded instructions kept the bullion moving across borders. Where governments faltered, Nathan thrived on complexity. The drama at Waterloo made his reputation, but the aftermath secured his empire. Britain emerged victorious, but heavily indebted, and Nathan positioned himself as the state's financial lifeline. Through bond markets and loans, he bound the Rothschild name to Britain's survival. By war's end, they had become Europe's bankers of last resort, trusted above kings. Peace did not slow their rise. Instead, it expanded their reach. Governments that had survived Napoleon now needed capital to rebuild and govern, and the Rothschilds controlled the supply. In Vienna, Salomon Rothschild underwrote Austria's state loans, working hand in hand with Chancellor Clemens von Metternich. In Paris, James financed French government projects, while also embedding himself in the city's high society. The Vatican turned to Karl in Naples for papal financing. And Frankfurt, under Amschel, remained the hub for German states. By the 1830s, the Rothschilds had become synonymous with sovereign credit. Austria, Prussia, the Vatican, and France all turned to them when funds were scarce. Monarchs wielded armies. The Rothschilds controlled liquidity. The family's strategy stretched beyond sovereign bonds. They recognized that real leverage lay in infrastructure and commodities, the arteries of industry and empire. In France, James de Rothschild funded the Chemin de Fer du Nord, one of the nation's most critical rail lines. Control of the tracks meant control over trade and troop movement. Across Spain and Austria, the family acquired mines, shaping the flow of precious metals essential to European economies. In Britain, they took major stakes in Rio Tinto, a giant in copper and gold. And in South Africa, they financed Cecil Rhodes and his diamond empire, De Beers. With this, the Rothschilds secured influence over one of the world's most symbolic and lucrative commodities. Each move was deliberate. Railways bound nations, mines supplied industry, diamonds embodied wealth. The Rothschilds didn't just invest, they embedded themselves into the foundations of global power. By the late 19th century, the family's dominance began to wane. Nationalism was rising, and states built central banks to rival private financiers. Still, the Rothschilds adapted. The most visible blow came in 1981, when French President François Mitterrand's socialist government nationalized Banque Rothschild. To the public, it looked like the dynasty had been broken. But the family did not disappear. They had already established Paris Orléans as a holding company in 1980. And by 1983, they began quietly rebuilding their banking operations under it. By 1986, they were allowed to use the Rothschild name again, re-emerging as Rothschild and CA Bank. And in 2003, their European branches were merged into a single entity, Rothschild and Company, smaller, leaner, and more discreet. Today, the Rothschilds are not the titans of headlines, and that is by design. Their power lies in advisory, not spectacle. Rothschild and Company operates in more than 40 countries, advising governments on sovereign debt and corporations on mergers and acquisitions. Through the Edmond de Rothschild Group, the family manages billions in private equity, real estate, and investments. Their vineyards, like Chateau Lafite Rothschild, serve as both cultural capital and symbols of quiet prestige. They are active in energy, infrastructure, and global finance, but rarely as owners of record. Instead, they whisper into the ears of decision makers. Influence without exposure, power without visibility. For more than 2 centuries, the Rothschilds survived by following a simple code. They moved faster than states through private couriers and coded intelligence. They spread risk by placing 5 brothers in 5 capitals. They advised rather than owned, gaining leverage without liability. Their fortune was hidden behind cross-border trusts and holding companies. And every heir was trained not just in banking, but in law, politics, and diplomacy. It wasn't wealth alone that kept them alive. It was structure. From a ghetto shop in Frankfurt to the highest levels of global finance, the Rothschilds built a system that outlived wars, revolutions, and nations themselves. Their power was never about spectacle. It was about endurance, built into networks and codes, hidden where no headlines could reach. Because the Rothschilds proved what few ever learned. Real power is silent. And behind every empire, there is a faceless mind.